Hello and welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Viking Chats, and I am joined today by the one, the only, the beardy, the beautiful, the joyful,
Thanks.
Mr. PVS, Chris England.
Hi mate.
Buddy.
It's so nice to see you. So nice to see you.
Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks.
So, look, I think the burning question on everyone's lips is, what's the number one sandwich?
Number one sandwich. So the number one sandwich is my Boxing Day sandwich.
Boxing Day sandwich.
Yeah,
We're bringing you the important stuff, people.
Yeah.
I want to get to start this off with the important stuff. Let's get the big news out there. The stuff that was going to change your life, and then we can move on to the more flowery stuff, like, I don't know, something about video and property or something like that. So numero uno,
Boxing Day sandwich.
Boxing Day sandwich. We're not going to go through exactly what that is.
No.
Carla and I have just had a technical breakdown of the perfect Boxing Day sandwich.
If people want,
I'm surprised Chris didn't bring out a whiteboard. It definitely would have added something to the talk, but after about 8 minutes of specifications, trust me, it's a serious sandwich, but we waffle enough on this programme. So Boxing Day sandwich, and then number two.
It's my second favourite sandwich.
It's what we're doing after this.
Salt beef, New York deli from
the New York special.
Your local.
From our Franco's Portuguese cafe up the road in Shoreditch, which I introduced Chris to. Is it 2 years ago now?
Yeah,
we did the
about
filming?
2 years
It's
ago,
about 2 years ago now, isn't it? And we did our first proper filming project together after years of you going, come on, let's do this. And I'm like, yeah, I know, we really need to do this. And you're like, so let's do this.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And we eventually did it. And then I nearly broke you in 2 days.
Yeah, we had a great 2 days, didn't we?
It was, do you know what? It was a lot of fun. It was really good fun planning it. Honestly, it is one of the most stressful, in terms of our prep of it, in terms of planning and preparation, it's one of the most kind of like stressful and intense things I've done.
Yeah.
In the 21 years we've had base, and not because we felt kind of overwhelmed by the filming side of it, or at least I didn't. I know a lot of our team were a little bit anxious about getting in front of a camera, and I think it's very, very common. Not just leaders. Leaders also struggle to get in front of the camera, but there was a moderate level of unease, I would say, in the office about being put in front of a camera. But for me, like I said, you and I talked about this for 2 or 3 years before we actually made it happen.
Yeah.
And I had a very clear idea in my head. I get the done beats perfect mantra to a certain extent. And I think when you're creating kind of generic or quick output social media content, I think there is a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
But I think what you and I, what we wanted to produce was high quality, high production, professional content, which was not only going to be our content strategy, but as you know, we built our new website, which we launched May last year, off the back of that content. We wanted to create definitely the UK's, but possibly the world's first video first estate agency website, which we've done.
Yeah.
But yeah, the planning for that, because obviously we booked you in for 2 days.
Yeah.
And
then
we booked you in for 2 days, and we had this idea of, we wanted office content,
loads.
Stuff in the office, doing the job, meeting the team, having the chats, using this room a bit, at the desk, blah, blah, blah. We wanted to get a bit of kind of neighbourhood and a little bit of out doing the job stuff.
And then you thought, we'll throw 2 parties.
And then
you thought just because we haven't got enough to do, we'll throw 2 parties in the mix.
So look, I mean, one thing I think we've always been big on service at Base. We've always been big on transparency and messaging. Reviews has been a big part of our business for a long time, both through Estes and Google. But we wanted that that next kind of level.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think reading off the reaction of our staff in the build up to it, we knew that lining up a handful of landlords to come in and do a quite cold, right, now you're going to sit in this chair and we're going to put a camera on you and we're going to give you these 5 very primed questions, which you've had time to come up with quite a sound-bitey response to. We knew we didn't want that. We didn't want your Dove soap commercials.
No.
We
wanted something more natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we knew with that, bring it into a social setting, we felt would bring that side to it. So as you know, we rented sub-rented one of our own landlord's properties from around the corner, a stunning 3-story loft. We got, unfortunately, they no longer exist as a business, having gone into administration now, but we had David Phillips, who we worked with at the time, come in and work with us to furnish and style the property, which is fantastic. We worked with a local cocktail company called Kalukale, and also a fantastic charitable food enterprise. Oh, good. I just remember the name, Humdingers. That escaped me for a minute. Humdingers up on at the top of Hoxton Street.
Amazing mushroom pacini.
Oh, I mean, their food was amazing. But they're an incredible business. If you are a bit of an aside, if you are a London business and looking to do something, do look into Humdingers Catering. Like I said, they're professional caterers. The food is incredible, but they basically run a soup kitchen for homeless and the needy. And I think I'm right in saying, I think last year they gave away, they produced and gave out something like 500,000 free meals.
Unreal, yeah.
So it's a fascinating business. So slight diversion there. Yeah. But again, when we were putting that all together, we wanted to pull all the elements together. So Kalukale, the cocktail bar we worked with, there's some really nice tie-ins in that Rich, the guy who owns and operated Kalukale, which launched a similar time to we did Base. He's the actual tenant in the property we sublet, but he travels a lot for business, so that all worked. And 2 of my friends actually did the award-winning interiors for Kalukale, the cocktail bar. So it was really nice to pull in little strings of different pieces. But, we put together effectively kind of a 3-site, 2-day film shoot. Yeah,
it was big.
It was big. We made you work, and damn did you guys work hard.
I mean, yes.
Yeah. But I think what
was it hard? Yeah. Was it long? Sure.
Yeah.
Was it great? Yeah. So that's fine. It's interesting actually. You say done beats perfect, and that is a thing that people say a lot. Particularly when it comes to certainly a lot of creative endeavours. People sort of look at graphics and they look at marketing and they look at video and they look at all that sort of stuff, and done beats perfect. And in a lot of cases, I'd say I agree. But you cannot get away from the fact that perfect also beats done. So that is a thing that people grow to learn. So I think that your business, obviously, we were after that two crazy days, we came back to film the 20th anniversary party, and that was amazing as well. And you actually used content from the 2 filming days at the anniversary party in the November. So you'd actually it was quite meta actually, filming an event where our film was on big screens and stuff. That was quite cool. And you do kind of get to a point in your business, and I think you're a long way down the track. We're nowhere near as old as you. I think we're coming up on...
Rude.
Not in that still, okay? But we're, our business now, on paper in October will be 8 years old, but ostensibly we've worked for 12 months prior to that, Matt and I, with Chris Watkin doing training around the UK. So we've worked together for sort of 9 years, but had a formalised business for 8 in October.
Do you know what? If you'd asked me to guess, I would have guessed you guys have been around for at least 12 to 15 years. It feels like you guys have part of the fabric of our industry at times.
I mean, I love that idea, and we've worked really hard actually, and it's not me.
Well, it's not just you.
Yeah. It's not just me. It's not, it's Matt and it's our team of amazing, creative professionals.
Don't forget the other person. The one you come home to.
Oh, my wife. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Michelle's been a huge part. The only reason The only reason, like, we actually have a business, really, at the sort of the inception of it was I was doing all this work with Matt and Chris. I was still working full time in a media job, and we'd grown my lifestyle photography business, which we had at the time, which we closed after 9 years at the top of this year because we're too busy with the commercial stuff. We'd got that business to a scale where it was paying me as much as my day job. And then Matt and Chris were going, well, if you weren't doing your day job, you could maybe do some of this and this and this. And it was Michelle that basically forced me to send the resignation email to my day job. And she was like, just do it, whatever.
I knew I loved that woman.
Yeah. And she sort of said...
Another reason to adore Michelle.
And she was said to me, look, the photography business is doing really well. You're never going to know if you and Matt don't give it a punt. We've got enough money in the bank to see us through. This was sort of October. This was sort of the start of October 2017, and she said, "Look, there's enough money in the bank to do it. We've got a couple of contracts in the air, on the basis that I could fulfil them, which I could only do if you left employment. And that wasn't stacks and stacks of money, but it was about $6,000.
Yeah.
Sort of floating about, and Matt and I couldn't deliver it without Matt. So I needed to do it through a new enterprise. I couldn't do it through my existing business because I couldn't do it on my own. It was too much work. And she said, look, that will tide you and Matt over, probably till January, February time. And then, worst case scenario, you run the photography business. That makes some salary. And if you have to then find a job because it hasn't worked out, then what have you lost?
Look, lean, anyone who knows me well will know I'm a huge advocate of lean startups. Bootstrapping, I think it keeps you very honest. It keeps you very focused on what's real in the business.
Yeah.
We've said it in countless interviews before. When we started Base, Anne and I were in very different places financially. I was, basically a year out of having left uni or drama college.
Yeah.
I'd done a year of acting work, a lot of which two of the three jobs I did was unpaid, and one was shit pay, I think is the technical term.
Yeah.
So we found ourselves, we were in two very different situations. I had a reasonable amount of personal debt because I didn't qualify for student loans because my parents lived abroad. So I had a reasonable amount of personal debt. Anne was in a slightly different position, but we decided 10 grand each in to launch the business. And we worked out, and these were back in the days when you couldn't be on Rightmove without having an office.
Yeah.
So you could not be in a business centre, you could not start your business at home and be on Rightmove.
Yeah.
Which, at the
interestingly
time...
now you're not on Rightmove.
Yeah.
Just, interesting now you don't do that.
Yeah, I left so quietly and discreetly. I don't think anyone really noticed we left, to be honest.
But it's interesting that you say that, like, because you sell, we started a lean business with 10,000 quid and blah, 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 blah. We actually started PBS with £0. Like £0.
Yeah, you just had, like you said, those contracts.
The only thing that we started with, which gave us a bit of a leg up, was I'd been running a photography business with Michelle for about 2 years at that point, and I'd got a bit of professional kit, all photography. I got some microphones and a few other bits and pieces, but video was a small part of what we did at that point. It was very lifestyle, lots of weddings, christenings, babies, kids, portrait stuff, some product photography. We had a light table and whatever. But I did have the studios where we still are. So what had happened was we'd had a little small studio. It was probably 4 times the size of this room. Yeah. So a square. And we got a couple of backdrop setups in it, a table, like a desk and a light table, a little sink in the corner, and like a little reception area. We could do meetings for weddings with clients and show them like samples and stuff. There were no windows, but then it developed a real damp problem, and the landlord basically said, "Oh, we need you to move because we can't fix it while you're in there." And we were like, "Cool, it's horrible in there, so that's great." And they basically showed us our current studios, and when I say it looked like something out of a horror movie, I mean it. It hadn't been occupied for about 3 years. The floors were all concrete. There were leaves in it where they'd blown in from the front door. The ceiling was down in our kitchen, just on the floor. Just there was no ceiling or whatever. There were cobwebs everywhere. It was like wading through, like massive spiders, like all this stuff. Honestly, and I looked at it and I was like, I see potential in this. And Michelle is great with like visualizing design and spaces. She's an accountant, but she's got an amazing creative side. And she was like, yeah, I think we can make this go. And we sort of proportioned the rooms into different things. And the landlord put the roof back in the kitchen,
How kind.
And they put a bit of flooring down in there. And then that was it. And then we've had like a lot of turmoil, as you know, with like water ingress and stuff. And over the years, we've had to basically put in like flood defences and pumps and all sorts of other stuff. And at one point, all the concrete had to be repainted because we had a flood and everywhere was wet. 2,000 square foot was under 2 inches of water, and like that lifted all the paint on the concrete, so I had to have it repainted, but there's no airflow, so the paint never dried. So at the end, the landlord ended up just putting carpet down in lots of places, which made the whole place way nicer. But we've redecorated spaces, we've transformed spaces, we've turned different studios from pure photography into video, green screen spaces. Our newborn studio is now Chris Watkins' sort of space for his sofa. People think that's in his house. It's not. It's in our studio. And a bit of like hot desking and stuff. And it's been this real evolution. But what's interesting is our kit room is mine and Matt's first office. So where we just put cameras now and lighting and rig and stuff is where Matt and I were back to back in one room, and we scraped together 900 quid at the time to buy a Mac so we could edit, not on laptops, actually have a Mac that could do the work. And we had no Wi-Fi. So if we wanted to send, we had tethered to our phones, but if we wanted to send a video...
Which is great for large file downloading.
Yeah, exactly. But if we wanted to send a file, we had to go home to send it. To send a video file, we had to go home to send it because we couldn't do it off the tether. And it's interesting to see like how you go from this kind of like lean startup. We got no lighting. We invested 400 quid in some lighting early doors, and we were like, that's broken us, like in terms of like investment, and now a lens is 1,500 quid. So it's a whole different ball game. What's great, but I think what's great about that is you get to a point in your business where you are staring down the barrel of having worked together for 10 years, or in your case, over 20 years. And you look at, and you reminisce about those things, but it keeps you very level. It keeps you very grounded. Like, I'll still go and sweep the front steps, Arkwright style. I'll go around with the bin bag and do the bins. Like, I'll go and collect all the cups up at the end of the day and do the washing up. Like, there's no kind of like standing on ceremony. I've
got to say, I think Anne and I have taken ourselves off those lists. Bin and teacups, we don't do that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I do less.
But anything else? I mean, I will go and if the office needs, as offices always do, every few months or whatever, you go, oh, it's looking a little bit messy, a little bit shabby. I'll be the one who'll go around the office pulling stuff out and stacking stuff and being like, right, that needs to go in the bin, that needs to get filed away here.
Yeah, but I think the best leaders, and I get asked this all the time, because when you've run a business, I don't like leader, like I don't really like it, but when you've run a business for a while, people sometimes ask you, and certain people who've been in business for less time, they ask you about sort of qualities of leadership, and they talk about, what do you think makes you, a good leader? Of people, and I go, I don't know, but they go, the obvious answers are always things like determination, resilience, whatever. I think the top three for me are like stubbornness. Like, I refuse to not be in business. So when we've had these kind of challenges, big challenges, COVID, flooding, robbery, burglary, it's the like, almost like, I don't know, can you swear on this podcast?
I mean, we're in a whole shit ton of trouble if you can't.
Oh, right. It's the kind of like, fuck you, I'm not going out of business.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not letting like something force majeure or someone else's like whatever put us under. So stubbornness, that kind of like, no, I refuse.
I think interestingly, what I've found in business is actually those tough moments, tell you a lot about your business.
Yeah.
and B, make you into a better leader. Yeah, because I think like we started in 2004 in an insane London property market.
Yeah.
This was back in the days where we were in a period where London property prices on average were doubling every 8 years.
Yeah.
And we were at the peak of that hype cycle, self-cert lending, as we know, self-certified mortgages. And we know where that led us, and just as we started to get that foothold, we launched May 2004, tail end of 2007, so kind of three and a half years later, when you just as a business start to, I think you have those quite traditional like 3-year mark, 5-year mark, 10-year mark, which are all quite significant landmarks for most businesses.
If they last that long.
If they last that long, indeed. And yeah, we kind of got to that 3-year and like, woo! And we started making some big plans. And we were super, super lucky because we were going to go big on sales. We'd negotiated quite a lot of year-long marketing contracts. And literally, I think the week before we were due to sign pretty much all of the marketing contracts that we'd put in place, the financial crisis hit.
Yeah.
And fascinatingly, very, very lucky, because thank Christ we hadn't signed those contracts. If it had hit 10 days later, I don't think Base would have made it.
Yeah. It was touch and go for a lot.
Yeah.
And I became an accidental landlord in the 08 crash.
Yeah, and but what was really interesting and what we learned was booming markets sound great. And I think this is true. It'd be interesting to hear what you think about this. I think this is true of pretty much any sector. When you get a rabid interest in a particular thing, and like I said, at that time, the London property market, it was literally pretty much print your own money time. As long as you had the balls to go out and get a mortgage, you were basically sat on a property which 8 to 10 years later
is going to increase in value.
Doubled your money. Anything in between didn't really matter. And so you had this absolutely frenzied sales market. And what that meant was, you look at it and you think, oh my God, literally all you have to do is pretty much put a property on the market and it sells itself.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a great market to operate in. But the trouble is, it puts everyone on the same playing field.
Yeah.
Because when it's all easy, you don't have to be good at your job.
100%.
And so the problem with that is if you don't need to be good at your job, being good at your job doesn't become a valuable asset.
Correct, yeah.
Or it isn't perceived as a valuable asset.
Yeah.
And therefore, it comes down to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
And that's when you see fees get hit and everything else, and you have this undercutting fees driving down marketplace. Yeah. And what we learned in the global financial crisis when that hit was, that hit, and we were like, shit, we really thanked our lucky stars we hadn't signed those contracts, because like I said, that would have killed us categorically. Unless they'd released us from those contracts, that would be it. Done.
Yeah.
But what we realised was, even when a market stops, it never stops.
Yeah.
And I think that was always one of the reasons I wanted to go into working in property, and particularly residential property, is times and society will change, but I couldn't ever see a time where people don't need a home.
Yes.
So it might change and evolve, and that's definitely been the case over the last 21 years, and particularly in lettings, but it was always going to be there. So as long as you could kind of navigate whatever those changes were. Yeah. And I think the interesting thing, like I said, was, we launched in 2004, booming market, this will be easy, but it's not easy, because anyone can do it. Yeah. And at that time, you could argue that, yes, pretty much anyone with a good bit of patter. And there was a lot less compliance and regulation then. Let's not forget, a lot of the anti-money laundering laws. Obviously, because of the global financial crisis, we've now got a much more diligent mortgage process, stress testing, due diligence on all the contracts. We had what was a miraculously quick sales process back then of about 3 months versus today's 6 or 7.
Yeah, but it is awful now. Like
but it
process is
felt
terrible.
you think you see a frenzied market and you think, oh my god, this is an amazing market.
Yeah.
This is where I need to be.
Yeah.
And I think what you don't appreciate is a frenzied market is just insanely rabid and competitive.
Yeah.
And then when the global recession hit, global financial crisis, we had that first few months, literally the market did stop, where there was this disparity between what a landlord thought they could get and what a tenant was willing to pay. And overnight, they were about 30% apart, 20 to 30% apart. And we had a stalemate of about 3 months. I remember we basically didn't do any deals for pretty much 3 months. And then the weird thing was, it was like there'd been some sort of secret chat overnight between the king of tenants and the queen of landlords. And they'd gone, come on. And suddenly there was this middle ground found and the market picked up. But what was interesting is in those 3 months, a lot of the flash in the pan companies were gone.
Yeah.
They built their business just around sales and quick sales and volume. And the moment that went, either they already went bust or they just weren't interested.
Yeah.
Lettings at that time had been fairly simple, a lot less legislation, but again, you put a okay property on at an okay price, and it would kind of shift itself.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden you had to go through these honest conversations. You had to sit down with the landlord and go, look, you might have got £2,000 a month last year, but the reality is if you want to let the property now, it's $1,650. And you couldn't go in and do the easy wins, do the thing that, we talk a lot about in our industry, which is overvaluing.
Yeah.
And again, in a fast-paced, rabid market, you can get away with that shit because the market will kind of adjust and fuddle around it, and you'll still get people through the door.
Yeah.
And look, you might, out of someone's desperation in a hungry market, you might get a silly price for it.
Yeah. You might. I think it's the same for us. I think you could argue right now that there is a boom market for video content.
Oh, 100%.
You
and
could
you've
argue,
got the added thing of AI in there as well.
You could argue that, we can talk about that in a second.
We'll get onto that.
We can talk about that in a second. So you've got this kind of like, in a very similar way, you've kind of got this almost bull run. And it feels a little bit on the AI front, which we can talk about in a second, but the AI front feels a little bit like the 90s .com boom. And you've got all these companies that are like launching whatever, and you're almost... I was going to run an AI course for my mastermind group tomorrow, but I'm actually not going to bother. I'm going to do it on lighting instead, because at the moment the pace is so fast that I can tell people about a bit of AI tech and then it can be redundant, out of business, or there's something better than it next week, and it's really, really, really very difficult, right? But there is this kind of this sort of value of video content now, okay? And as we sit here, right, you've really graciously talked about the 2 days we spent together doing top tier, beautiful looking video content, whatever, but you're filming your podcast on 2 iPhones with a couple of cheap lights. Yeah. And I don't mean that in any disparaging way, but what I mean is video content.
We've got my old phone from my office mobile contract, my new phone
and a couple of lights
contract,
and a couple of tripods.
We've got, the rig on here, I would say is about £100
apart
for the
from,
lights
apart from
thing
the phone.
and the tripod. Yeah, not ignoring the phones.
Yeah.
And then that one, again, we've got a mini rig on there, which is probably about 60, 70 quid. And then we've got the old monopod from our old virtual tour camera.
So the total cost of all of the gear there, aside from the phones,
ignoring the phones,
which are in your pockets, are less than one light without the power
that
we would put into a shoot, right?
And we do have the microphones.
And the microphones.
Now, these are about 300 quid.
Couple hundred quid. Okay, so fine. So call it 500 quid all in, right? That's less than half a lens for us, right? So you can.
Do you think 5 years ago, I want to produce my own?
No chance.
Not professional,
but good looking, good sounding,
standard,
good looking podcast, right?
Yeah.
It's accessible now, and so the argument would be there's this rabid demand for video content because of TikTok, Instagram, stories, Facebook, YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn Shorts now. You obviously LinkedIn, all these other platforms that almost have a need for video content, right? property as an industry is at the forefront of that, right? We can't get away from the fact that if you look at manufacturing, engineering, recruitment, finance, legal, they're 10 years back on the technological side, and they're all just starting to warm up to the fact that, maybe this video thing's a thing we should think about from a marketing perspective. And I'm like, cool. But when we started our business in 2017, only very forward-thinking, you think of the adoption curve, right? Only very forward-thinking businesses were thinking video at that point. We were doing video training around the UK. Chris Watkin actually was one of the first people to say, I think agents
Look, let's tell it how it is. There are agents adopting floor plans at the moment, going, woohoo, floor plans with every listing.
We think that, we estimate from the number, the thousands of agents we've spoken to, trained, spoken to on stages, between me, Chris and Matt, we've probably spoken to rooms totaling 10, 15,000 estate and letting agents, and done training in all those sort of areas. Certainly during COVID, we had big webinars with hundreds of people on who were bored, right? But thousands and thousands. And we estimate that only around 2% of agents are making any video at all.
Yeah.
That's even virtual tours. I spoke to an agent in Nottingham a couple of weeks ago because my mum listed an apartment for sale. And I rang the guy, and he was lovely, and they sell loads of properties in that area. They're the number one agent in that area. And I said, "What's your marketing strategy?" And he said, "Oh, well, I'll pop round and take some photos." I went, "Cool. What are you gonna take your photos on? I'm interested. I'll do cameras." He went, "Oh, I've got the latest iPhone." I was like, "Cool. How about maybe we do some marketing? And I won't charge you because it's my mum's gaff." He said, "What are you thinking?" I said, "Oh, we'll put a Matterport round. We'll do a 360 tour. We'll do a video walkthrough. Would you mind being the presenter?" Whatever. And he was like, "Oh, we never do that." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but that's sort of where the market is, whatever." But he hadn't even thought about that, and we're sort of really down the line with video, yeah. But you would think that with all the accessibility with your iPhones, or other phones are available if you're weird and he likes Android. I've turned some people off there.
Yeah, we've just lost half our audience because it is about a 50-50 split now.
Don't care, right? But yeah, other phones are available, right? You'd think that the demand for like professionally made video content would be diminishing. But actually, the demand is increasing because people try it. The done beats perfect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they realise, a bit like going to an art shop and buying a load of oils and a bit of canvas and a load of really nice brushes, doesn't mean you can paint the Mona Lisa.
Yes.
And so whilst the technology is a thing, and one of the things you said...
Well, all the gear, no idea, right?
Well, there is that, but that's how I am with golf. But there is a percentage, and we actually have had this kind of conversation in our team about what is the split. So if you take 100% of something, right, we think that actually making professional video content is about 30% equipment. I think it's about 30% gear, right? About maybe 30% experience in terms of actually having made a lot of things for a lot of people, different types of industry. And that remaining 40% is personality and people and the people skills. Because you said at the top of this, we had all this trepidation, our team were nervous, whatever. And then we had 2 absolutely phenomenal days. And I walked in the office this morning, big hugs off everybody, and they were all brilliant because our team are so good. They put everyone at ease. We're friendly, we're affable, we're also skilled and knowledgeable and professional.
And look, it's something you see time and time
100%.
again. It's a common thing I see with people posting. Jackie, no. No, no. But it's something I see really common. People posting, going, "Oh, at long last, had the guys in PVS to do the stuff," and the number one comment every time is how much you made everyone feel at ease. And I think for first timers who are and who want to take the team on that journey, it's not just, oh yes, we're the founders, it's going to be all about us. Which we all know, great, yes, founders play an important part, but it's about the whole team. That's the true experience of people dealing with your business. They're not going to pick up the phone and speak immediately to the founder of the business and deal exclusively with the founder of the business. But no, that warmness, that getting people to relax, that they're not somehow going to be caught out, is, like you said, it's a massive, massive part of it. Now, another one, you were just kind of off the top of your head doing kind of percentages. capturing versus editing.
Yeah.
What do you think that kind of split is? Because I would say...
Double, at least.
Yeah.
At least double.
So kind of 30 to 70, 35 to 65.
I mean, realistically,
kind of
so like you're talking, so...
Because I think that was, for us, that was the thing when we tried to do video early.
Yeah.
That was the thing for us, because we had quite ambitious ideas.
Yeah, the editing side.
We had quite ambitious ideas, we would capture quite a lot of content.
Yeah.
But, you know, you had to have someone who had CapCut or a decent editing software with a decent bit of knowledge.
But even with the softwares, right? Even with the software, right? Anyone can go and get themselves an Adobe subscription from Adobe, right? Others are available, right? You can get yourself a Premiere Pro subscription. You can buy Final Cut if you're a Mac user. You can get CapCut for nothing. And there are any number more now of editing.
Well, I mean, even
tools.
Apple's own editing tools to a certain extent.
It's okay, right? But again, a bit like, you know, with the art analogy, or with you can make yourself a cosmopolitan at home, but when a mixologist makes it for you in a bar, it tastes a bit better.
Yeah.
Yes, partly it's because of the experience. Yeah. You know, it just tastes a bit better, but partly it's probably because the quality of the booze is better or whatever. But they're an artist. You know, in every field, it's the same with the barista. Coffee tastes better when someone else makes it. You know, dinner tastes better when you go to a restaurant. You know, and it's because you've got specialists doing these jobs.
Yeah.
And it's not related just to videography, but when you've got a professional editor whose job it is to sift and create something that tells a story, that has impact, that's got interesting transition, that has relatable and relevant supplementary footage, that's nicely branded, you know, the music's at the right levels, the audio's great, you know, it's not just the tools. You know, I think about our tool kit.
Yeah.
You know, a month, just on an average month, I don't like talking about money, but on a month we'll spend, you know, close to £1,000 a month just on our toolbox, you know, just in terms of what we're using, just in softwares, just to make things go. Because it's not just about the editing software, it's about the subtitling, it's about the sound, it's about any stock footage.
But it's also a skill. I mean, it's a skill set in itself, right? It's I think, you know, when you're dealing with people in property and you know, from founder exec level down, you know, you've got, first of all, great, they want video. Yeah. But, you know, you've got initially, but do they have an idea of what that looks like?
No.
Like,
so
you know, you and I, when we talked about this, you know, one thing I will have when we're dealing with creatives, whether it's someone designing, you know, logo or artwork for us, or a new website, or working with you guys, I will have a very clear artistic vision of what it wants to look like. I will give a very detailed brief.
You're unusual.
But that said, although I have a very clear idea in my mind, I can have that. You could sit me down in front of the easiest editing software in the world, short of it being AI, where I could literally read my brief into it. But you know, ignoring that capability, I would have a very, very, very clear vision, and I could have it written down and everything else. But sit me in front of an editing software and I could not create that vision. I mean, and that's what I love about working with creatives, is it's that
pulling together,
expert. It's that, you know, pulling together of the different, you know, the different strings, the 100%. Different elements, the different pieces. Again, much like business, right? Know what you don't know.
Yeah, but there are three things there. So one, I have to be completely transparent and honest. Like, the quality of what we produce now, actually edited wise, has zero to do with me. We in business, I think it is good to seek out talent and employ people who are better than you at jobs.
Categorically.
So for me,
and specialists,
what I would say to you is I am an all-rounder.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am not a jack of all trades, because I'm not great at plumbing or electrics, right? But I am a very good photographer.
Yeah.
Like I'm a very good, particularly portraits.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
I've taken hundreds of thousands of images of people in every environment. I am a good top tier professional photographer, and I will back myself to that.
Yeah.
I am a good, not great, good standard quality cameraman.
Yeah.
Like I can take you a nice shot. I've got creative vision because I take nice photography, so I can translate
You
that
know how
into
to frame a shot.
Yeah, I can take that into footage, right? I'm a very good interviewer of people because I was a journalist and I was trained to be. But I am not a top tier cameraman. I am not a lighting expert. I'm okay with sound. I'm not amazing with sound. I've got people in my team who are great with sound and fixing little tweaks and problems and audio, and we've got loads of tools for that. I am not a good editor.
Yeah.
I am not. I'm a good editor of photos, but I'm not a good editor of video because I don't have the patience for it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say photos and video. I'd say I'm the same. I'm a hobbyist photographer.
Yeah.
I love my photography.
Yeah.
When I'm bumbling around at work, but also with the fam, out and about.
Yeah.
I love architecture and all this sort of stuff. But like you said, I can pull up a photo, again, not professional editing, but I can pull up a photo and I can play with all the different
100%.
light levels, contrast, black and white, all that sort of stuff, and be like, damn, that looks amazing. But like you said, moving, not.
It's harder.
And even I think back to when you first sent us over all the footage, and you dropped all of it into the folder and was like, look, right, go through it. And I think you guys have put together some initial, just rough draft edits of we were thinking something like this. What are you thinking about? And I remember I went through that video content and I sat there and went, ooh, that's the soundbite I want. And I literally ended up, I spent a couple of hours doing it. And then I sent you guys an email, which was a list this long. And it was like video 1, 22 seconds to 35 seconds, and then 57 seconds to 1 minute 12, and it was just
which I love,
with the opening line, the ending line. But despite still having that's the thing I want. That's the thing I want. That's the thing I want. I still could not have put that into an editing suite and put something together that I would have been happy with.
What's interesting is that you actually, because you are a creative person, and we've had conversations on our podcast about your time on the stage and your drama and all that other sort of stuff.
And my dad,
and your dad being an artist and all that sort of stuff.
That's where it came from. His art direction, his graphic design days. We were told to constantly question. I mean, he was an avid fan of architecture.
Yeah.
So hence the passion in property, because everywhere we went, it was like, what type of property is that? What era is it from? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And again, because he worked in advertising, my dad worked in advertising through the heydays. He sort of came in just after the Mad Men era. And was an early starter at Saatchi & Saatchi. He won some D&AD awards for his work over the years. He worked on the Marlboro account, doing the Cowboys, doing the Marlboro cars in Formula One, all that sort of epic stuff. And I was raised in a household where literally every time an advert was in front of me, on the telly, on the tube, in a magazine, he'd be like, "What do you think of that? Yeah. What do you think about the font, the size, the layout? Why did you put that?
But you're fortunate there because most people don't have that, and most people come to us. Like 90% of people come to us. We had it the other week. We're doing a big because we don't just do property. We do a lot of property, as you know, but we do other industries. And we had a government contract for some stuff for an ambassador network, apprenticeships and stuff. And they came to us and they said, we want to make. They'd seen something else we'd made for a local economic partnership, a LEP, in Lincolnshire. And they'd seen that, and they still made me bid for the tender, even though
love your work, absolutely love your work.
Yeah, what was interesting with that whole thing is, so we made this piece of work for the LEP. It looked amazing. We got great sort of stories for these apprentices, and we did a digital brochure that went alongside it, which had got embedded video and stuff like that, right? And they loved it so much that they created a project to do something similar, and then the lady from the LEP sent me an email saying, "Oh, I think you should probably bid for this," basically because they loved what you did for us, so they're doing something similar, so you might be successful in the bid. Anyway, and I looked at it and they hadn't got a scope of pricing. I hate that. It's like when you apply for a job and they don't put a salary. Yeah. And I'm like, cool. And so they'd got this whole tender document, whatever, and there was no cost attached to it. So I emailed them and said, look, what's the rough price range, whatever, because there's no point me doing 2 days of admin, like to do all these big forms, government forms, for 1,500 quid. Like, there's just no point because it's bigger than that. But I just need to know whatever. And they're like, we can't tell you what the price range is. I was like, cool, I won't be bidding then. And they came back and they went, well, if you were to sort of bid for this sort of idea, what sort of price range you'd be thinking? And I was like, well, it depends whether you do this or this, but somewhere in the region of, 7,000 to 10,000 quid. And they went, well, we've maybe got somewhere around there. And I was like, okay, so you want me to bid?
Yeah.
Because they've seen something. Because a lot of people, right, when it comes to creative stuff, they cannot see it. Yeah. And that's why companies like Lemon and Lime and Dr. Photo at both ends of the scale work so well, because they allow non-creative vision-y people to visualize spaces with furniture and things like that. You came to us with quite a definitive brief. We refined it and we tweaked it, but most people come to us and say, oh, we want to make a business profile. Yeah. And I go, cool.
We want to do video.
Yeah, we want to do video. And I go, cool. And we work a little bit backward. So rather than working with the problem, we work on outputs first.
Yeah.
So I'm like, great. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to achieve from the piece of video? Oh, we just want to do video. I'm like, yeah, I get that. Yeah. Where does it want to live? Yeah. And they're like, oh, we want to put it on the internet. And I'm cool. Like, where?
Where?
You know, so, because that will dictate.
We talk about your website page.
Yeah. So that will dictate
social content.
100%. And it will dictate. And most people come to us with a brief and they say, look, we want to make a business profile. And my initial reaction is, why? Why do you just want to make a business profile? You're going to all of the kind of effort to engage with us
to make
one bit of video content that you're going to use. So they go, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. And I said, well, have you thought about maybe maximising that time? We can put more people on the job. We can put 2 or 3 people into that scenario, and then we can do professional photography. We can do the business profile that you want, and we'll help you design what that looks like. But also, have you thought about doing some meet the team stuff, or doing some teamy bits, or some FAQs or whatever? And they go, oh, we wouldn't know what to say. I'm like, okay, well, have you ever used an auto cue before? And they go, no. And I said, well, it's quite straightforward. We run you through it, and we can do that, and then that will give you a nice thing. Have you thought about pre and post valuation video content? And they go, oh no, what are they? I said, well, do you use a tool like Hackaboom or anything similar? Oh yeah, we do that. I'm like, well, have you got any video on there? They go, well, no, we don't do any video on there. I'm like, cool, well, maybe let's think about this as a bigger piece. Yeah. And then they go, oh, we can, but I'm not sure we're going to have the budget to do all that. And I go, well, look, you're already paying for the front end bit. Yeah. You're paying for us to come out with cameras to do one video. Yeah. That cost is the cost.
The cost per video, that's the premium.
That's the premium, yeah. So you're basically saying, like, you're happy to pay all the production bit, which is the spiky sort of cost, right? All we're talking about here is a bit of post-production, editing time. So you're talking about the difference between maybe having 1 day of editing time or 3, and the cost is maybe 1,000 quid. And they go, oh, well, that's very reasonable. And then they go, and then they start thinking a bit broader, because
it's also economy of your time, right? Because for you, again, you've got to charge, you can maybe do a half-day shoot if it was like super local to you. Yeah, but once you factor in travel time, set up, getting everyone kind of geared up, ready to go, lighting, off you go,
and we could be anywhere.
Up. Yeah, that's a half day. 100%. Even if you get an hour, 2 hours of filming in.
Yeah, and I think for me that's the thing. And I think but also what I would say about it is that when you start to see the ROI. So we talk about video content. The business profile is a really good example. Yeah. So people say, I want to produce this business profile. I want to put it on the internet. And I go, great. How many versions do you want? And they sort of say, I don't know. I said, well, why don't we do you a long version that you can put on your About Us page, and then we'll do a short version. It's about 2 minutes. And then that'd be great because you can put it on Facebook and Instagram and whatever. And they say, oh, right. And they said, would it work on Instagram? I said, well, we'll reformat it for you. So we'll do a real version and then we'll do you another version. They're like, oh, can you do that? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I said, do you want it square as well? And they said, oh yeah, we'll have it square because that'd be great for Instagram. I said, well, actually, if you're doing some square stuff, you meet the teams might be nice in squares because they go on your pages, whatever, and they work nicely as a grid. Oh yeah, and then they start thinking bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden, people think of this like, when they engage with a professional person, certainly like when it comes to us anyway, our mission in life is to turn that relationship, a bit like you and I, into a marriage, not a one-night stand.
But look, I mean, there's many similarities, to lettings, sales. I think especially 100%. Lettings. When we first talk to a prospective landlord on the phone, or we go and meet a prospective landlord at a property, if we walked in the door and literally just bombarded them with not only everything we do, but everything they need to be legally compliant with.
Yeah. It's too much.
They'll switch off.
Yeah.
They'll switch off, or they'll just go into freak mode and just be like, get out.
Yeah.
So it's got to be that tiers. But again, they want a quality partner. They want someone that's going to do it right. But, you've got to feel out what that is. You've got to understand what it is they need for you. Just like different landlords need different things. We've got landlords who, ultimately compliance is the main thing. They find that very terrifying. Maybe they know someone, or maybe they've got caught out with a silly mistake beforehand, and they just want it taken care of.
100%. The key thing is as well, and people say all the time, it was a bit like when I used to go to weddings and you'd have pissed Uncle John you go to the toilet and they're like, is your lens big enough?
And but he's a lot of fun.
And I'm like,
Uncle John, isn't he? I mean, he's a good dancer.
But then he's like, I don't know why you got those. I've got an iPhone in my pocket. I'm like, yeah, but you're now 7 drinks down and like your photos are going to be squiffy. And it's a bit like that. Like people are like, well, why would you use a professional camera crew now when you can use iPhones and 200 quid's worth of gear, right? And my argument is this. Would you... you might, right? You will have people who would plaster their own living room, and you will have people who would decorate their hallway, stairs and landing and dice with death on a ladder over their stairs, whatever. But I would pay a professional painter and decorator because I know that 1, I'll get a better finish, 2, it's less risky, right? Because it's not my fault.
It's also probably done in a fraction of the time as well. You'll probably do it
right?
they'll be in and out in a day, whereas you'll be there like 5 days later effing and jeffing while you decided to do the job
I agree.
yourself.
But and that's the we're prime example. She is brilliant, don't get me wrong. My wife decided that she was going to lay a laminate floor, and that she was going to cut round all the edges and the cornicing on the all the doorways and all that sort of stuff.
I'm feeling like this went really well.
It went really badly, and we fell out, whatever. And I went, look, I'm washing my hands of this because we're just falling out and getting into rows about it. And she went, leave it with me, I'll do it anyway. I came back from work, and it was done. It was perfect. And for about an hour, she tried to make out that she'd done it herself, but she'd got a man, like local guy, who literally put it on Facebook and gone, look, I made an absolute balls up of this.
Every time Hayley at home is like, do you think you could just... No. And I'm like, no, I'm thinking we get our company handyman round.
Yeah.
I'm happy to pay, not a landlord problem. I'm happy to pay, but I'm like... Yeah. And her thing is like, but you could do it. And I'm like, yeah, I could.
Yeah.
But I know what'll happen. Mm-hmm. They're 3 small jobs, but it'll end up taking me 5 hours because I won't have the right drill bit.
Yeah.
And I've got the wrong raw plugs. And I can't find the spirit level to make sure it's, whatever.
That's right, yeah.
Whereas, the handyman will come in and in half an hour, all 3 jobs are done to a fantastic standard. And they've also gone, by the way, you said to put it here, but have you noticed if I do put it here, you can't open this?
Yeah.
And that might look a bit funny, so how about if we put it here? Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. But that's why
again,
we're big advocates.
Expert, knowledge, experience.
But look, we're big advocates for Done Beats Perfect, right?
Yeah.
We run training. We actively encourage people to make their own stuff because not everything you do, and it's really important to remember this, not everything you do requires a professional camera crew, right?
No.
You can definitely do little housing tours on your phone, little speed tours on TikTok. You can definitely do photos, if you want.
You've got
really
some
nice
great
ones.
gimbals now.
Look,
you can
there
get
is
really fluid
buy
stuff.
yourself a DJI
really
Mini.
nice drones as well, tracking drones.
Yeah, and they're quite straightforward to use, right? I am not for 1 minute saying you must always use a professional camera crew because that's a load of shit. And also, people don't have the budgets for it.
It's about a portfolio.
100%.
Right?
But
the spread.
What I would say to you is Nike and Adidas and Virgin and
never heard of any of them.
Whatever, right? They put money into influencers. They put Virgin Holidays will send lad baby off to Florida on a Virgin holiday, right? Nike will send influencers a new pair of Air Force Ones to review on their YouTube channel and TikTok and all that sort of stuff. That happens, right?
But that's not their only marketing content.
They also produce a £1 million TV advert.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's about the spread and the split. So you want to look at your business, right? So anything that, obviously most most of the stuff that we do is like, for us, is good because we've got professional camera people and whatever. There's still a cost to that. People are, oh, it doesn't cost you anything. I'm like, well, it does, because all the editing time and the production time when we're making stuff for ourselves diminishes the amount of hours available to sell. So there's still a cost, even if we do it ourselves. But, you know, I wouldn't have a show reel for our business, which is effectively what a business profile is.
Yeah.
That's just a few shots on a phone, right? Marquee content, stuff that is going to see you, the stuff that's going to last a while, and that's the stuff we made for your website. Business profile, meet the teams, FAQs, stuff that's got probably a 2-year shelf life.
Kind of frontline,
100%.
shop window.
Yeah, all that stuff. That also you get huge ROI because it will go on all your social channels, your website, it could go out to your database, it can go on newsletters,
Gets recycled,
it can be used,
reused,
it can be reused, recycled, republished, it can go on an exhibition stand, it can go anywhere, right? QR code in the window. Like there's loads of ways of like recycling, reformatting, and we work with people to really sweat that asset, yeah? But you can definitely still make things on your phone. And using the Nike analogy is a really good one. Yes, do the stuff on your phone, filming your new trainers, but also do the £1 million TV advert. And that's where there is the split. We started to talk a little bit about AI and AI video, and I'm conscious of the time.
We have, as is true to form with the Viking chats, we're fully waffled our way to about an hour. But so we're going to have to squeeze in something that we wanted to talk about.
Super fast about the AI thing, right? People ask me a lot at the moment, like, aren't you worried about AI and this, that, and the other? I'm not worried about AI. Right, I'm not worried about AI from a vision.
And worrying about it isn't going to change it.
No.
And I think that this isn't just true for you, right?
Yeah, it's for everyone.
There's every business right now, and rightly so. You know, I keep saying this, I'll keep saying it again. This is our industry's industrial revolution.
Yeah.
And I think actually even
you've
more
got to adopt it,
because we're not just disrupting the horses in the fields.
No, you've got to adopt it and use it. Yeah, you've got to adopt it and use it, but it doesn't currently, very important, it currently doesn't do what you want it to do.
No.
You can have a very, very elaborate prompt into a video generator thing and it still looks weird, right? You can use some really good tools like HeyGen, Synthesia to do an AI copy of Kristjan, an AI copy of Chris, and you can get that fake Kristjan or fake Chris to say whatever you want it to say. Is the voice perfect? No. Is the lip syncing good? Ish. It's okay.
Yeah.
It will get better. It will continually improve and it will get better. But what it can't do is the real stuff, right? It cannot go out to a property, sit with a customer, value your property for you, take your photos. It can take those photos and make it into a slideshow.
Yeah.
It can take that video and you can do an instant edit on CapCut and just drop your clips in and it will make you an edited video with a bit of like pop music or whatever, right? It can do that, right? But it can't do the human-y bits. And also...
But also the editing. I mean, we played around with a lot of stuff and you know, you recommended a short format.
Opus.
You know, Opus, which is huge.
Oh, it's great.
And it's great, but it's great at that short format stuff, which is very soundbitey, quite a capable, you know, quite a relatively easy thing to do, but it just gets rid of that labour that we had before.
Yeah.
You know, we have got probably, not tons, because I think we could very quickly realise we weren't doing anything with it, but, you know, we will have footage sat somewhere from 5, 8, 10 years ago, and we were like, right, we're going to start doing this video stuff where we've captured stuff, and it's just sat there, it never got through the editing process. But yeah, you've got that for the short format stuff, but like you said, longer stuff, editorial stuff, and also proper video editing, proper nuanced video editing. I haven't seen anything yet that really gets close, that when you drop something in and you give it a decent prompt, I haven't seen anything come back yet that is really close to the expectations I would have of someone like you delivering that work.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work that well yet.
And look again, horses for courses. We come back into that done beats perfect. Is it super cheap? And is that a decent leap forward from what you were going to produce in-house with your own lack of knowledge before you make the leap forward to professional? You know, I don't know. You've still
maybe. I think
you've still got to ask. I mean, we've not gone down the clone thing. I'm fascinated by this AI journey. and we're looking at it in so many different aspects with both businesses. But if there's one thing, and if there's one common theme I keep hearing as well, and generally we're talking about marketing, right? Marketing across fundamentally any stream of business, and it comes down to that authenticity.
People don't like it.
Brand style, brand value, the like I said, authenticity. It's got to be there, and there, as much as there's a growing awareness of AI, there's also a growing cynicism of it, and to a certain extent, a resentment of what it is going to do, and blah blah blah. So, I think you have to be careful. But again, I keep on coming back to, when I write less production-wise, less video, just more AI in the workplace.
Yeah.
The thing I keep coming back to is crystallizing what is unique about you, what is unique about the business, where do you add value, whether that's in your professional knowledge, your negotiation expertise, your likability, your personality, your attitude and culture, whatever it is. You've got to understand what it is that delivers value and resonates, and you've got to crystallize that out and protect that.
But you've got to work within you've got to work within the framework. That's the reality of all of it. No one's bemoaning the Blockbuster video store. No one's bemoaning the lack of there being a physical phone book that you've got to flick through, And also this AI, people talk about, AI. Like, we've been using AI for years. Like, Siri is AI. Google Home is AI. Google as a search engine is AI. It's just purposed in a different way. What's made AI sort of trendy and popular are things like ChatGPT, and then things like Midjourney for image generation, and obviously things like HeyGen and Synesthesia. But Matt is way more clued up on AI. He's doing tons and tons of R&D on AI all the time, new tools and stuff. And as fast as new one some come,
the
others
marketplace
go. It's so saturated at the minute. But what's interesting about it is there was a stat that he was reading, like people's awareness of like volume AI, things like that can do lots of these things worldwide, something like 0.01%, because a lot of industries, and I go back to this, property as an industry is very forward thinking. They're first to adopt lots of cameras.
Which is fascinating, because we give ourselves a really 100%. Tough time about being Luddites, right? About not adopting tech, about not evolving our marketing. And I think maybe if you look at us as an entire industry,
maybe.
Yes.
But if you look at
if you look at the top 20 to 30%, and I mean, let's be generous. If you look at the top 50%, you've generally got that move. But if you look at the top 20 to 30%,
but it's cutting edge. You're talking about 360 technology, cameras that use LiDAR, your drone tech. Even just with phones and whatever. Other industries don't do that, and I don't care what people say. They just aren't. They are not making video at scale. They're not doing a lot of the other things that are technologically advanced that the property market does do, which is why it's an economic driver, I think. Part of the reason it's an economic driver, because it does move a lot of other things on. But the adoption of AI is small. I showed my parents ChatGPT, because you can talk to it now. You can actually have a conversation with Chat. I showed my parents that about 2 weeks ago, and they looked at me like I'd invented fire. Like it was. It's just not a thing that's come across their radar.
My parents were in my car a couple of months back, and this isn't even AI. I literally, you've got Siri, the phone links with the car, and I was just like, call Hayley. Call Hayley on a mobile, and the phone's like, calling Hayley. And my dad was like, my mum was like, what just happened? And I'm like, Mum, it's voice recognition. I was like, this is not. I was like, if that blows your mind, I'm going to totally blow. I'm going to blow your brains apart.
It's honestly, it's unbelievable. And I think AI for me is something you need to work with, not against. It's coming whether you want it to or not.
Categorically.
And I think it's about finding methodology and ways to work within the software.
And look at every point. When we talk about that, I think it's really important. I think when I talk a lot about it, a lot of stuff I talk about out there on these chats and stuff, I think are typically maybe not targeted before, but are absorbed more by key decision makers and kind of leaders of a business. But I think what's really important, we talk about AI, when you talk about, you've got to start using it, you've got to start learning it and adopting it. We mean this for everyone. Anyone watching this, and just on your phone, like letting your devices do that journey for you. Like now you go on Google, you do a search, it will typically default to an AI at the top, and then you can dive deeper using Gemini and blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about that. You need to start thinking how you're going to leverage this within your life.
Yeah.
And you need to start playing around with that. I mean, it's a conversation we've been having with the guys in base for several months now, saying that, look, you guys need to start, as a company, we're going to be doing more and more, but as individuals, if you want to succeed and be a high value proposition within the employment marketplace within the next 12 to 24 months, you need to understand how you're going to leverage what AI can and will be able to do to make you an invaluable member of staff. And part of that value, it will be that knowledge.
Yes.
Will be that knowledge that you develop, the way that you leverage agentic ChatGPT, or whatever it is. We are just skimming the surface, man.
Oh yeah,
and these advancements are happening faster and faster. The cleverer it gets, the faster it moves, the faster it.
But you need to think of it a bit, just like, and I talk about our digital toolkit, in terms of our editing software. Yes, at a top level, people are, we just bang it into like an editing software. I'm like, yeah. But then you've got sound to deal with, then you've got light to deal with, you've got colour to deal with, you've got, transition to deal with, you've got subtitles to deal with, you've got maybe, something you want stock footage-wise, backgrounds, whatever. There's bloody loads of stuff. Like, to make an edit look professional, like top tier, nice, there's loads of work goes in, as you would imagine, right? Otherwise, why would we be charging for it? But it's just like a plumber with his toolbox. My mate Tom's a gas man, right? He's got a van full of tools, but he's got a big toolbox full of lots of very specific tools for very specific jobs. And I think you need to start thinking with AI.
It sounded like you were going to go into the monologue from Taken then.
No.
The very particular skill sets.
But I think the key thing is that you have to start thinking about what things can you add into your toolbox. A bit like, I'm Microsoft Word compliant, great. I can use Excel, great. I can use Outlook, great. I can use PowerPoint, brilliant. I can use a bit of Premiere Pro, amazing. Like, I can also use ChatGPT to a decent. And what does that mean to a standard? I'm also conversant with HeyGen. I can also I'm pretty good at prompting Mid-Journey, and these sorts of things. And all of a sudden, they will become metrics for CVs and for jobs, 100%. But you need to start thinking of AI less like the enemy and more like, I learnt the Microsoft set of stuff. I learnt the Adobe set of stuff.
It's a digital assistant.
100%.
It's a digital assistant.
100%.
I think interestingly, like. And look, there's going to be that well-known wave of kind of, you've got the hype cycle and the cynicism and everything else. But it's, we spent a lot of time deciding how we were going to deliver AI tools within the depository.
Yeah.
Right. So, probably about, 18 months ago when ChatGPT kind of did that first kind of social awareness came of it, and people suddenly like, what the fuck is this? I remember our lead dev, Chris, sending me a message, and this is why we love working with him. He's an incredible guy, but he was like, I was looking at this AI stuff over the weekend, and I just had a little play, and here's AI responding to a tenant counteroffer. And he'd just slapped a couple of bits of code together, done it super basic. But he was like, and literally I watched this thing and I was just like, sorry, what?
Yeah.
But as exciting as that was, it was like, oh my God, we can build this thing that answers. Then it was like, what? Whoa. So now, right, and this is the shittest it's gonna be. This thing that I've just watched that has just absolutely fucking blown my mind is the crappiest it's ever going to be. And it's going to move fast. So, but we could have moved quickly. And look, I applaud companies that did move quickly with, maybe it's unfair to call them gimmicky things, but because I think it also kind of brought awareness and has softened people's kind of approach to it. But you had use AI for a property description, or whatever it was, and it was like, okay, that's not going to change the world. But yeah, we looked at, great, okay, we've got these capabilities. And then we first of all went, right, okay, where in the journey that our platform takes people on, and we looked at all three stakeholders, agents, landlords and tenants, where in that journey do we feel this is going to add the most value? So we first of all looked to identify those, and those were three key areas: negotiation, the creation of proposals, and then data extraction. Now, data for me is really interesting because data, I think, is one of these things. We all know data is valuable, but particularly as small businesses, having the time to extract that data and then diagnose it and understand what that data is telling you and action on it. Most of us just categorically do not and will not have that time. 100%. You can pay consultants to it. A lot of people don't have the budget to invest in a professional consultant to do that. And so, yeah, it just, it feeds back into this thing of, so you need to take time. So those are the three areas we identified. But then we looked at the next thing. We were like, right, okay, what does that, so then we needed to figure out what order we release those in. Which we took a bit of a lead from our clients, actually, to be honest. That was really interesting. It was a 50-50 split. Almost exactly 50-50 split on which way we primarily did things. With data, everyone was unanimous. Data would come last. But then we had to think about what the adoption and implementation of this would be like, right? Because we could have, yes, ChatGPT's just released agentic, and that is still early phase yet. But I mean, we only released our first AI tool 6 weeks ago. So around the same time that agentic came out. So we could have gone whole hog and gone, do you know what? Let's keep tweaking and working and tweaking, because we know it's coming, and the moment it comes, we'll go Shazam. If we sat in front of an agent now and went, do you know what, we've built an AI tool and it's so good, it's gonna do the negotiation process for you guys on deposit deductions. I think there would be so many red flags at this moment in time. It is so early doors in people feeling safe and secure with what it can do. There's so many considerations, there's so many questions. Not only that, the reaction of the staff and the team when you put that, we've seen it with businesses globally who understood this value and went all in and brought a lot of tools in, cut a lot of staff, and then basically had a mutiny of the rest of the staff being like, we're out of here. It's all those iterations. We made a huge consideration, not about what those modules are, but what a consideration is going to be for agents. What do we think that implementation journey looks like? And again, it's kind of like, handrails. We're kind of taking them on a journey. So we are building out the first two tools we very clearly are referring to as AI assistants. An AI negotiation assistant and an AI proposal assistant, because that is what it is now. It is helping, assisting. The property manager still adds the nuggets of their knowledge experience. So in the negotiation tool, they can let AI create the whole proposal, but where they add their value is two key areas: what that amount potentially is that you're counter offering, which they can still lead with, and any nuanced and detailed information about that specific incident. So, don't you remember, we agreed 6 months ago that when you left, you would contribute to 500 quid to the new sofa. Or, you assured us that if the landlord let you use the garage, it would absolutely be clear of everything when you left, whatever that is. Those kind of detailed little bits of nuance that won't be in an inventory and check-in report, that won't be common knowledge and won't be commonplace. So you've still got to distill where the human adds the value. And so that's what we've done. We've built a tool that, yes, you can click create response, and we gather information around the framework or the negotiation range that landlords are happy with, and then that informs our AI tools of what a counteroffer amount should be, and how that proposal is worded, factoring in negotiations to date, contract law, all that sort of stuff that we've fed into our prompts. But importantly, great, we've got that, and there are some staff out there that will be an amazing tool because their default mindset, and again, there's nothing unique to property, this is just human nature, there is a segment of people who go to work whose primary objective is to do as little as they possibly can without getting fired,
Well, quiet quitting, they call it, don't they?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, they're not even quitting. They're very happy to get paid. They just don't want to do an iota more effort.
Yeah, they call it quiet quitting, don't they? Yeah. Where they get to a point. And I had that, to be fair, in government, where I got to a point where I distilled my work. I was so efficient because I went from a private sector job to a public sector job, and I felt like I'd slowed down from 70 on the motorway to like traffic roadworks crawling at 20 miles an hour for about 8 years. And I was able to take what was a 5-day work week that I was being paid for and actually do the bulk of the work within 2 days of it, the rest of it plan the following week, and then I pretty much padding out the rest of the time, not because there just wasn't the work there, and that's why I got bored and in the end set up a business while I was working and then moved out of it. And I think a lot of people kind of get to a point where like, well, I can't earn anymore, I can't do anymore, so I'll just sort of do the bare minimum, and I get that, I understand that mentality. Like if you're not challenged, or you don't feel like you're moving forward, or you don't feel like you're valued, or you don't feel like you're able to contribute something different or see a growth pathway for yourself, then why would you? And I get it. I do get it. And it's contingent on business owners and leaders to help their staff feel like there is a progression for them, or at least if there's not a financial reward, there's an educational reward which could see them into the long-term future, whatever. I think. But look,
I think any businesses that play a role in evolving a landscape, be that business, direct to consumer, whatever it is, and I think this is just as true for video production as it is for how we're talking about AI. If you want to really succeed, you've got to really think about all of the parties involved in the entire process of what your journey is. Who are you pitching to? Who are the key decision makers? What are their drivers? And then how that trickles down, how that is implemented and realized, who are the different, front end users, what is their, what do they want out of it? What is their end purpose? And so, just like you guys have evolved your product over time and you've now got your, property club subscriptions, and you've got you've got all these different bits and pieces, because it's not one size fits all. It's not everyone's going to want the same thing. It's not everyone's going to have the same consideration. Again, what we looked at with AI was, again, we're going to deal with businesses that are startup letting agents through to the biggest corporates in the country. And no shit, Sherlock, the considerations for them are very, very, very different. For a startup, it is pretty much, or early phase business, it is all about cost and ROI on a very, very simple level. And pretty much everything else, as long as the cost ROI is there, great. You deal with a corporate, and there is everything from, their data due diligence, how it aligns with their brand, implementation, rollout, what that looks like, contract terms, risk, reward, all this sort of stuff. So, like I say, coming back to AI, we've been talking about deploying AI tools for at least a year before we actually started building the first one. Because what we needed to do, we needed to think about our front end users, our property managers, our property administrators, who were the ones who actually day to day use our platform, interact with the landlords and tenants on it. What is going to help them move the needle? What is going to help them get their work done easier to at least the same, if not better standard? but also in a way that they feel comfortable with. They not feel like they are being replaced by a robot. Like I said, it needs to be that assistant thing. Whilst also respecting the fact that they don't all perform the same. We pull a lot of data out of our system, and just like letting agents and estate agents out there, we doing their day-to-day full service job, we know what good looks like, and we know what bad looks like. And interestingly, for the very, very top performers, for the people who are absolutely phenomenal at their job and get some amazing results out of our platform already, we've got users who are getting single-digit deposit returns, and they are averaging over 90. We've got some users who are in 98, 99, 100% of all proposals they make, they secure that value. Let's be honest, those users, we can't really help them.
Yeah.
We don't need to.
No.
Because they're amazing.
Yeah.
If we can make their job slightly easier, they'll be happy.
Yeah.
Because guess what? The feedback we get from those guys already is, fuck me, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you've made my life so much easier, and they use it in a way. Then we've got the middle tier of users, the ones who do a good enough job. They're averaging, around our average, around kind of 12-day deposit returns. They're probably in the 80 plus, 85% plus achievement. Now, what we're going to get with them, again, we're dialing up the assistance, and they interact with people, but maybe not to the degree of effectiveness and expertise that the top performers do. So what are we giving them? We're giving them the ability to give more detailed, more nuanced answers with a little bit less effort.
Yeah.
Which they can still refine. And they are the ones who will typically go, oh, do you know what? I think we should offer this amount, whatever it is. I think we should counter offer 250 quid.
Yeah.
And they will put in a couple of notes like I said, tenants agreed to a £600 deduction 6 months ago. And we did a pre-checkout inspection a month ago, and we told them, replace your light bulbs, fix that hole in the wall, and get that kitchen cabinet door back on, but they haven't done it. Generate, and their AI will take the figure, it will take their notes, and it will take all of our prompting and information that sits behind it and create that. But then we know what our lower performers look like.
Yeah.
What the slow response is, where we're looking at, around the national average of 21 days or slower, even with what our platform does. Where we're looking at, securing on average, we're looking at figures where we've got users in the 50 to 80% mark. And 80, fine, but when you're getting down to 60, 50%, that's not good. And then when we drill down into that, we see, as we touched on, whether it is laziness, whether it is the fact that they have so much on their plate, they are so overburdened that it's not that they can't be bothered, it's just that they do not physically have the time or bandwidth to do it. And so what we see is, we'll see, a tenant come back with a counter offer, and they'll go, I'm not paying this, blah, blah, blah. Justify what you've already proposed to me, and at that top level, we've got really detailed, nuanced responses that acknowledge everything that the tenant has said. And if they've asked, I want to see a receipt, I want to see a quote, boom, it's added in there. You've got the middle ones where they might upload a receipt or invoice, or they might give a more detailed response, but probably not the two. And then at the bottom performers, we see answers like see previous response, which is a really polite way of saying, fuck off. Like, why are you wasting my time? I've already told you why this is legitimate.
Yeah.
And so, and again, I'm not calling out the people who do that, because I don't understand or know the circumstances. And lack of training, lack of skill sets, whatever it is, there's an array of reasons why that response might be. But in less time that it now takes them to write see previous response, they will now be able to click propose, and our AI will come up with a figure, will create a response that does a very good job of acknowledging what the tenant has come back with, but explaining why that still isn't relevant and why the charge is still, so we expect initially when we look at our performance, like I say, we've got this huge differentiation between our top end users, and I think we've got something like around 1,500 like agency individual users on the platform now, and we that split out between top and bottom is big. In the next 12 months, we expect that, that difference to reduce by at least 50%. And like I said, the top ones, don't think they're going to move much. They're nigh on perfect. So that's not going to really budge. The middle ones, we're going to see them probably just up their game by about 10%. But the bottom ones at 50%, they're now going to be here. They're going to be sat right underneath the middle performers, if not on par, if not, and potentially we've got 2 tiers. And so that you look at the capability, and then you look at what the next level is, because like I said, if we'd gone in front of clients and gone, hey, don't worry, this can do everything for you, just switch it on, team don't even have to worry about it. When I say this, there are a couple of agents I've said that that's where we want to get to in 12 to 24 months time. And they're like, can we do it now? Which I think is funny. But you need to go on that journey. And so we want to prove what it can do, and we want it to learn from what it's going to do over the next 12 months. And whilst we're doing that, we're going to build out what that next framework looks like. So, and when we talk about that, and we talk about going agentic, we're talking about agentic, but I suppose agentic with reins is what I would call it. So we're already thinking what that looks like. So the kind of things that we are thinking our clients will configure when we get to agentic phase is, when do you want it to respond? Do you want it to respond just within your working hours? So there is this perception, actually a question right from the top. Do you want it to be open and transparent, that it's an AI tool that is engaging with them or not? And again, I don't necessarily say there's a right or wrong either way. There are risks and rewards on both sides. So I think number one, you've got that kind of question. Then number two, you drill down into, like I said, do you want it to work to the parameters that your business does? Like for base, 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday to Friday, that's when we're open. Do you want to say it only responds in that? Or do you want to go, well, fuck it, why not? Why shouldn't it be 24 hours? 24/7, so people get an instant response. But then, again, you've got factors of human psychology. So a tenant will come back with a counter offer. If AI responds, if 3 seconds later after a tenant responding, countering stuff, if 3, 5, 10 seconds later they get a notification in their inbox going, landlord's come back on all your proposals, guess what? A, they're going to go, it's AI. B, they're going to go, you haven't spoken to the fucking landlord. So there's all these elements at play, So, does it respond within working hours? Is it extended working hours? Is it 24/7? Do you factor in a delay so that there is a perception by the tenant that there has been a nuanced discussion around their particular counter offers? Or do you want a quick response? And so that's what we're thinking about now, is as we roll these tools out, when we go to the next phase, what are the reins, what are the frameworks we put in that? Are there trigger words we want to have alerts for? So, if the word dispute or adjudication comes up, or, if there are words in there, like I want to see an invoice or a quote, phrases like that, AI can't yet to do that because it's not plugged into all the different elements where these things are. So we're going to need a human to go, oh, right, I need to add an invoice to that one. So it's all those things. And I think that's for me, the fascinating thing with AI is, it's like a new member of the team. It's like a new member of staff. But then you've got to think, what does that look like?
Yeah.
How does that shape? How does that fit in? And what does that mean to front-end users? What does that mean to middle management? What does that mean in big businesses to senior exec boards? What's attractive? What's scary?
Yeah.
And I love it. It's a fascinating journey.
Yeah.
But,
do you have a final question?
No, I think we did well to squeeze that one in. But we've definitely run out. I think we have set a record, my friend.
Great.
We are at about an hour and a half.
Great.
and your sandwich is a great risk. So we're going to wrap it up there. We've waffled, we've talked video, we squeezed in a lot more AI at the end than probably we should have. That should have been a 5 to 10 minute segment, and I've waffled fantastically on that. But dude, we need to go get sandwiches.
We need a sandwich.
So thank you. Love you.
Love you.
See you soon. Well, see you now. But, you know, see you soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Cheers. Love you, buddy.
Love you, mate. Let's go that way.
There we go. We got it good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. See you again soon. Bye.